The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Code Darms Paints, and Miniature War Games with Battle Games magazine, and also by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thanks to everybody for their continued support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 130. In Her Majesty's Name, with Neil Shuck and Mike Whitaker, and a special guest appearance by Mike's Squeaky Chair. This show was recorded on Friday the 11th of July 2014. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. I'm Neil Shuck, and this evening I'm joined by Mike Whitaker.
Good evening.
Mike. How you doing?
Oh, I'm all right. It's warm. It's a nice sunny English summer's evening, and we're podcasting.
We could be outside sipping a beer. However,
right, that's it. We're done.
Done. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye. Yes.
We're off for a pint.
And immediately returning to view from the veranda. Yes.
Ooh, a nice single malt. Yeah, that's tempting. That is. But we digress.
Indeed, we do. Yes. It seems to have been ages since we spoke, which was probably actually the last time we did a podcast together, which is
more than likely.
More than likely, a few weeks ago. So before we dive into the main subjects this evening, I think it'd be good just to catch up and go. So, what have you been doing with yourself over the last few weeks in gaming?
What have I been doing? Let's see. I've had a game of Chain of Command, including some of the world's most ridiculous dice rolling ever. First time I've ever seen someone have 6 phases on the trot.
What?
It's odds of just over 1 in 9,000, apparently.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, quite. Been building some extra bits for the next time we run Bloody Omaha. Got some of the war-based dice cages to go on some casualty bases to hold the casualty dice.
All right, very nice.
Which are going to look very nice, actually. They'll be a fairly quick paint job. What else have I been doing? Been painting a load of boards for the club. We have a whole bunch of green boards which were plain wood on the other side, so we figured we'd paint a batch of them blue and a batch grey and a batch sand and a batch black on the theory this will please the Dystopian Wars players, the Warhammer Fantasy players and the X-Wing players.
Oh, right, okay.
And I've been returning to my role-playing roots and signing up on a Firefly Mush online role-playing game.
Oh, right, okay, that's different.
Text-based online role-playing game.
Oh, right, text-based.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Improves the typing speed, no end.
Indeed. And, and of course you don't need a state-of-the-art machine in order to run it.
No, quite. I'll be curious to see how much the player base drops when the big new Firefly multiplayer online comes out, which that's supposed to happen in the summer. But for now, it's good fun. I haven't done it in a while, and it's kind of good fun. So that's pretty much me, I think.
Oh, I see. So you've been missing Meeples on the Edge so much you decided to go and do something.
Pretty much.
Right. Yeah. We really must do some more of that. That was good fun.
Yeah.
And I see. I happened to notice on I think it was a blog update today that you actually managed to have to cancel the Dread Ball tournament.
Unfortunately, yeah, with not enough players.
I must admit that kind of surprised me. I mean, do you think that's actually indicative of all of a sudden people have perhaps not as not as popular as it once was?
No, I think it's partly we had issues with getting the venue to confirm a date, so we probably didn't have as much notice as we might have liked.
Okay.
But I suspect we'll give it another shot later in the year. with a bit more of a run-up, and we seem to have finally managed to get hold of the person who runs our venue now, so hopefully we can get back to having some useful dialogue with them that doesn't take 4 months to turn around to ask them a question.
Well, yes, always useful.
Yes, always helpful.
Indeed.
Yes, that was a shame. I was quite looking forward to some Tournament Dreadball on Sunday, but guess I'll just have to go to church instead.
Oh, well, next time I'll make sure that I'm on the ball with it, and I'll make sure I've got a team fully painted and ready to come over to Peterborough, because it's not that far away, is it?
And it's not that much painting either.
Indeed not. Allegedly.
Allegedly. So
allegedly. Well, since we last spoke, I've actually primarily I've been reading. Been doing a lot of reading because we've had our next miniature war games deadlines for magazine reviews and those other bits and pieces. So next column for that is coming out, which is issue 376, I think it is. Found some really interesting stuff. One interesting thing I did come across was there's a company that it's the first time I've heard of it. Although from the look of what they've been producing, they've been going for a while. If you've been playing things like Infinity or Kensi, which is Japanese kind of large skirmish game sort of thing, or kind of like Saga sort of level.
That's really more Rich Jones' cup of tea than mine.
There's this company called Plastcraft Games, who are based in Spain, who've been producing scenery for these sort of games. One of the big things, obviously, in the last few years has been cheap MDF scenery.
Oh, yeah.
This company are producing stuff in plastic. So it's plastic sheeting as opposed to MDF sheeting.
Interesting.
Very interesting, and they have just released a World War II set, which is interesting because it says it's 15 to 20 mil, which I would suggest is something like it's kind of a hybrid between the two. So I suggest it's probably about 18 mil scale, which some people may turn around and say, well, it's neither use nor ornament, because it's kind of a compromise between the two. However, I was having a discussion with a few people, and basically some people turning around and saying MDF buildings are great when they're wood. When they're denoting something that's brick, well, they don't look like brick buildings.
Well, no, they don't if you take them as they come out of the box. It always depresses me slightly, the number of people who take the foreground stuff and use it stock, and everybody's Wargames table looks the same. Whereas the foreground stuff will look absolutely brilliant if you're prepared to spend a little bit of time touching the paint like that. And you can certainly make it not look like wood.
Yes. However, this stuff is produced, and because it's in plastic, it looks like plastered brickwork as opposed to wood, and it looks really nice. And
what was the name again?
It's called Plastcraft Games. Plast Craft Games. The really interesting thing is, if you remember, or if you've seen Rich Clark's Laporte Command and Colours game,
yeah,
the church that he uses.
My goodness!
You can now get it in 18 mil.
Page up. Oh yes, please.
It looks nice, doesn't it?
That church is lovely.
It's the church in St Mary Église.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it looks absolutely lovely.
That's really, really nice.
And at the moment, they do basically a set of 4 houses. They do a church, and they do some roads, and they do set of walls, basically. And that's what they do at the moment. But they are, lift off roofs. They've got, so you can still place your troops inside and this, that, and the other. Ooh, but they look really nice.
The complete building set, he says, having just brought up the website, which is all 4 of the village buildings, is €35.
€35.
Present exchange rates is under 30 quid.
It's about 20. I think it's about. It works out that
it's 125 now. So, and the church is €33, which again 26, 27 quid, and that church is. That is real. The church is 19 inches long and 9 inches high in 18mm. It's a big church.
Yeah.
And that looks really, really nice. I knew it was worth doing a podcast today.
That was probably one of my most interesting finds of the last couple of weeks, as far as non-rules related stuff is concerned. So I was really impressed. I really asked a couple of guys who run the company. I exchanged a few emails with them. They sent me some very nice high-res photos of those other bits and pieces. I'm thinking, ooh, right, okay, saving up money, going to get some of those and see what see what they're like. Now, it's quite interesting because when was it? It was Hammerhead. This whole thing about this year, you get buses with bridges.
Yes.
As in, we get X number of different versions of the Pegasus Bridge.
Yeah.
The first one we saw in almost like 15, 20 mil sort of thing was actually an 18 mil one that Warbases did.
Yeah.
And again, they did a similar thing. They kind of did a hybrid scale, so they did it in about 18 mil as opposed to doing one in 15 and one in 20. It kind of looks like that might be something that'll work. And as I say, so all being well, and even on the website, it's got some pictures. I don't know if but it doesn't say whether the miniatures it's photographed against are 20 mil or 15 mil, but they do seem to work okay. So that was one thing which I found really interesting. The other thing, I've been having loads and loads of rules to review. So not only have I got loads of rules reviews hopefully coming out in miniature war games in the next couple of issues, but also loads of stuff for the podcast, including a couple by podcast listeners.
Cool.
One of which I'll come to in a minute. So, having a look at loads of different things. Interested to know, I've seen the new pirate rules from Osprey called. I knew I should have had the book in front of me. I think it's on the Seven Seas. I think it is, which is written by Chris Pears. So I've been having a look through that. Jury's out on that one for me. A lovely miniatures range to go with it. It's got loads of pictures of the new miniatures range.
North Star again?
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes. Yeah. So it looks to be Steve Seller. So nice set of miniatures. Although I do wish that it's obvious that he may have been watching Black Sails before sculpting some of these. We'll just leave it
no
at
bad
that.
thing.
So, been looking at that. Obviously, we can review that. We'll review that in a later podcast. The other thing I've been looking at is the new regimental level Civil War rules. That's American Civil War rules called Cross the Deadly Field, written by John Hill. If you recognise the name, he's the guy that wrote Johnny Reb, and also the guy who wrote Squad Leader.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Other than the fact that the book is absolutely stunning, really well produced book, lovely. It's standard thing, Osprey artwork, and then loads of pictures and models. They've done a really nice job with the book. However, it's something I haven't read for a long time, which is a regimental level, detailed simulation wargame set of rules, and it's amazing. You kind of get out of the habit. And when you start doing things like, okay, right, so your unit sizes are based on the fact that each figure represents this number of men, and therefore an average regiment is made up of this many units of this many figure bases, and you work up from there.
Cool, that's revolutionary. That'll never catch on.
Oh, and of course the other thing is that in the design documents, I had to smile because it talks about the fact that it's designed so that you could play a full scale regimental battle in less than 3 days. An average skirmish could, should only take you an afternoon.
War games are the gentleman of leisure.
It does seem to be. I mean,
war games for the person with the big permanent war games room.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing that kind of struck me immediately. There are so many games out at the moment that are either aimed at being fast play or they're skirmish games. So, that the game time is anywhere between 45 minutes and 2.5 hours. And here you got a game. Which is, right at the start, it turns around and say, okay, this is designed so you can play day 2 of Gettysburg or what have you, over a weekend.
Lovely.
Which is perfectly fine. But as I say, you kind of get out of the habit, and you start looking at these rules and reading things and various other bits and pieces, and very well put together. Really well detailed. Unfortunately, you kind of go, "That's great," but I mean, certainly from my point of view, they're not for me because I haven't got that amount of time.
How many figures painted?
Mr. Whitaker, who are you? Who are you? Are you Mr. Hobbs in disguise?
No, but I have a note from him telling me the things I need to say. Do I not recall you picking up some 6mm? Was it 6mm ACWs a while back?
No, the only.
Or was that Henry?
No, that's Henry. He had a whole load of Pendraken.
Oh, that's right. He had a massive. It was Pendraken. He had a very expensive Pendraken accident.
Absolutely, a couple of years ago, if I remember rightly. Yeah, Henry, if you're listening, have you kind of painted those yet? I know
we've got this rule set we'd like to try with you.
I know that. I know people in glass houses and all that, but
I really shouldn't show you my unpainted pile. There's an awful lot of Napoleon at war boxes in it.
But hang on a second. Last time we spoke, I thought you said you were going to paint those.
Yeah, unfortunately, then somebody decided we were doing bloody Omaha.
Oh, right, okay.
I plead 500 American infantry.
Yeah, okay, fair dues. American Civil War is the one thing, is the one period that kind of leaves me a bit cold. I mean, having said that, I've got the 150th edition of Battlecry, 150th anniversary edition of Battlecry, should I say, which came out last year. Was it only last year? No, sorry. No, it was 3 years ago. Crikey. Where have the years gone? But which is the essentially the Command and Colours ACW box set, which is really nice. That was from Avalon Hill, and that's a really well presented game. But that's kind of like all I need to kind of scratch my ACW itch. I mean, Bacchus do a fabulous range of 6mm ACW figures. Yeah. In particular areas, it's really popular. It's never been a period that I've found that I really want a game. So, but in all the same, really interesting set of rules. I've been finishing reading those on the bus on the way into work this week. They've been that's been really interesting.
It's a period I have actually played back in my first bout of being a wargamer at the School Wargames Club. We had. Do you remember the little Airfix magazine guides, the little A5 hardbacks? They did a set of Civil War rules.
Oh right, okay.
But back then, of course, you are an impoverished teenager, and it's Airfix plastics and nothing.
Yeah.
So it was Airfix plastics. But they're quite a passable set. The only thing that always struck me as really, really strange is they had some fairly complicated rules for infantry fire, but cavalry melee was a straight D6 versus D6 dice off.
Oh right, okay.
And it's just weird. Why? Why is this suddenly so simple? And everything else is so complicated. But they were quite a fun set of rules. But I'd have to say, it's a period that if I ever took up, it's the one period for which I'd probably give serious thought to 6mm.
Yeah,
not in the least because the paint jobs are so trivial, relatively speaking.
Indeed. Another set of rules, two more sets of rules. That one actually came through the door today, which I wasn't expecting at all, but another set to review from Osprey. Actually, quite exciting because it's a new set of rules from Dan Mersey. It's called a Lion Rampant, which they're a set of medieval skirmish rules. I looked at it and thought, medieval skirmish rules. Oh, right, okay. And then I saw, Dan Mersey. Oh, in that case, then they'll be all right.
Yeah, what does he define as medieval in this context?
It's basically based on things like William Wallace, Richard the Lionheart, that era. So it is actually kind of traditional medieval era. So you're probably kind of looking 13th to 15th century.
It's sort of knights and barons plus retinues.
Seems that way. I must admit, all I did was open the envelope, look at the book, have a quick look through, had a look at some of the pictures to kind of see some of the examples of what they were using, and yes, it looks kind of medieval warband like.
Yeah, I was just curious as to whether I could squeeze it in for the Anarchy, Stephen and Matilda, or if that's a little early for some medieval rule sets.
To be honest, I don't know.
We'll have to review them and find out.
We shall have to review them and find out. Yes. But they came through today. I'm looking forward to reading those over the next few days. The one other set of rules that I've not only read, but I actually got to play last night. Woohoo! I actually got finally managed to get play another war game. Were Sword and Spear.
Yes, I saw these. I saw your review of them, and my immediate reaction was, I need to get a copy of that.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote basically just like a 2-paragraph. Oh, played these last night. Ooh, they're nice. Okay, they're written by a guy called Mark Lewis. Who, hello, Mark. Apparently, he's a podcast listener.
Hey, Mark.
So, yeah, hi, Mark.
Come on and talk to us about your rules sometime.
Well, funny you should say that, but he has offered. So yes, we will be having him on.
Excellent.
They've finally come out in print this week. They've been available in PDF for I think 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, that's right. He's using Lulu, isn't he?
Yeah. In PDF, they're £6. In Lulu, it's £14 for the print version.
How many pages?
40 pages. All the army lists are available for free download online. At the moment, he's got, I think it's 52. But basically, it covers everything from biblical, New Kingdom Egyptian sort of era, right through to medieval Europe. The major areas as far as his army list at the moment are Macedonian wars, wars of successors. Then you've got Roman enemies. You've got quite a few medieval, some Dark Age, and New Kingdom Egyptian, and just a few other of that ilk. I think there's only about 4 down there. But say 52 army lists in total.
Nice set of Crusades lists.
That's the one I was missing. I was thinking there was another one there as well.
But he's got the nice thing about it is he's got, just looking at this because I've just brought the lists up, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different Muslim opponents for the Crusader lists, which is really nice. And then he's got a whole bunch of medieval lists as well. That looks like, certainly from a lists point of view, he's got things covered.
Yes. It has to be noted that I downloaded the army lists and I failed to. And we started building armies last night, and I kind of went, "Hang on a second, what does this mean? What does that mean?" And discovered that I'd failed to download the guide to the army lists, which is at the top of the page. Oops. So there's a couple of things that are not in the rule book, and then you look at army list and you think, how the heck does this work and how does this go together? Yeah, things like how much do army commanders cost, and what does this mean, and what's the difference between core and support troops? Fairly fundamental stuff when you come to actually building armies. But that's all available for free download. The main core rules. 40 pages, full colour, as far as the put together stuff goes. Really well produced. Loads of nice model shots in there. Well explained with diagrams and this, that, and the other.
And a very generous offer. If you buy the hard copy, he'll send you the PDF. If you've already bought the PDF and you buy the hard copy, he'll refund you the cost of the PDF.
Yes.
Very nice of him.
Indeed. Now, as
Order
far
on its
as
way, Mark. I should add, I've been a WAB player pretty much since I got back into wargaming, and it's starting to lose its magic. Not the least because I play so many rule sets which aren't I go you go now.
Okay. Well, this we're going to do We're going to do a massive in-depth review of this game but I must admit, I've not been. Well, okay. This is something I mentioned on my blog post, which I put up today. But the blog post I put up was entitled "Sword and Spear: The Holy Grail of Ancient Rule Sets." For the longest time, I've been kind of looking around for a set of ancient rules to play, and which are element-based, but kind of tick all the boxes. And as you go through all the rules that you play, I mean, and you know, I've played most of them out there. I suppose I was relatively happy with War Master Ancients. Hail Caesar was okay. Things like DBA, DBM, and Fog just didn't do it at all for me, I'm afraid. I know there's a lot of people out there that love DBA and DBM. Sorry. And apparently DBA 3 is supposed to be quite good. Because I know a couple of guys who have been playtesting it. But it just doesn't float my boat at all, I'm afraid. So the one set of rules that I really liked was Impetus. But we ended up playing a lot of basic Impetus. Basically because, I game a lot with a guy called Dave Luffus, I'm sure that you've heard me mention before. And he's one of these guys who likes, a nice set of rules, but something that's relatively straightforward. And you don't have to keep looking back at all these little, well, okay, you can do this, except when you have to do this or do that or do this instead. An awful lot of ancient rule sets aren't particularly intuitive, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the WAB side of things, I haven't considered things like whether it's WAB or Clash of Empires or War and Conquest. I don't consider those because primarily they're based around units made of individual figures and figure removal, whereas we've been looking at using element-based ancients in 6mm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So out of the other set, I know you've been a WAB player. I must admit, I really like War and Conquest from that sort of things. I think they're smashing. But
they're just probably what WAB 3 should have been, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they're a lovely set of rules, but I play in 6mm elements, so unfortunately, don't play them. So as I say, we never really come across a set of rules we were 100% happy with, and we kind of settled on playing basic Impetus. But it was because, well, that's about the best we've got as far as where we are now is concerned. I'd kind of exchanged a couple of emails with Mark, and he'd sent me a preview copy of the rules and stuff, and then I admit that I completely forgot about them because it was like real life took over, and then I spotted them come out. I emailed him. He said, "Oh yeah, I sent you a copy of those a few weeks ago." Oh yeah, I remember now. Oops. Yes, sorry. So anyway, I went back. Had a look at them, sorted everything out, went and played them. Oh my word! I'll tell you up front, I've not been as impressed with the set of rules since Saga and Chain of Command.
That's quite something.
They are that good.
Right.
Now, admittedly, they will not be everybody's cup of tea. I will state that immediately because they are very much an overview as opposed to a detailed set of rules. Okay, so they take a general overview of a battle as opposed to a minutiae detailed look at a battle. Okay.
Yeah.
However, what they do really well. So we're going to do a full review in the not too distant future. But just to let you know the highlight things. Okay. So element sizes, you're looking at the same element sizes as you use in Impetus. Okay. However, basically you can use it with any size element as long as you use the same frontage. Okay.
So you can even play it in 28 and shell out on some of war bases, movement trays, or...
Indeed, yes. So if you play in 2800 with 120mm frontage bases, it recommends an 8x4 an 8x4 table in order to play on it with an average of about 15 units a side.
Sounds reasonable.
If you're playing it in 6mm, like what we were last night, you can get away with playing a game, because we use almost like standard polymorph bases sort of thing. So that's 60x30s. You can play it on a 4x2 board and get a decent size a decent sized game on a 4x2 board.
Sweet.
Element based, as far as command and control is concerned, imagine a cross between Saga, Donnybrook, and Bolt Action, and you kind of think at this point you kind of go, what? Okay, dice activation. You standard D6 dice. You have 1 dice per element in your army. Okay. Mm-hmm. All the dice go in a bag. So, like for example, last night we were playing a 300-point game. We were just trying it out for the first time. So it's a 300-point game. Or actually, I think it worked out to be a 350-point game because we'd forgotten to have the commanders in, but we only had 1 commander each. So it's about 350 points. Okay, we were playing Romans against ancient Brits. So I had a fairly standard Roman army of 3 legionary elements, 3 auxilia, cavalry and light cavalry, and I was facing off against a shed load of Brits. So I had eight elements in my army, and Dave had 15, I think it was. So it's the usual thing of quantity versus quality. Sort of
screaming warbands versus disciplined legions. Yeah, I know how that goes.
Indeed, yes. So you bungle these dice in a bag, and then the turn ends when the dice bag is empty. But on each phase, what you do is you pull out 7 dice. Okay. So obviously the thing is that the dice of the different armies are in different colours. Okay, so you pull out 7 dice. You then allocate those dice between the 2 commands. Obviously, it's an odd number, so somebody will have more dice than somebody else.
Right.
Okay, the person who has the most dice becomes the active player. The other person is the reactive player. Okay, person who is the active player rolls all their dice. All their units, depending on your troop quality, need a certain number. It's usually either 3, 4, or 5 in order to activate. Okay, so having rolled the dice, you then place your dice against the units you want to activate. The reactive player then does a similar thing. So once you've allocated your dice out to your particular units, you then activate your units starting with the lowest number dice on the board first, which are basically your better quality troops get to move first because they need the lower dice rolls in order to activate. But it goes low number to high number. So if the active player has a unit that activates on a 4, and then the reactive player has a unit that activates on a 3, the reactive player goes first. So all the units are activated in dice order, but active player moves before reactive player. And once you've done the first phase with the first 7 dice, you then take the next 7 dice out and roll again. Obviously, if you have dice that only roll a 1 or a 2, you can't order units. So basically, those dice are then wasted. So you've already got a form of friction in there because there's a very good chance you won't be able to activate every unit every turn. And then combat is basically just opposed dice rolls. You get various bonuses for different things, but you all roll d6 and then you pair off and compare. Combat is really simple and bloody. Essentially, units only have a set number of wounds. If you beat a dice roll of your opponent, you cause a discipline check. If you fail that discipline check, you take a hit. If you beat it by double, you automatically take a hit anyway. Most units can only take 3 or 4, 2 or 3 hits. It's only things like Roman legionaries that can take 4 hits. And once they've taken all those hits, they immediately ret. So combat is very fast and bloody. Possibly slightly not detailed enough for some people, but it works fairly well at a slightly higher level.
It doesn't sound any less detailed than Hail Caesar.
Not quite. No. It's not particularly movement. But I mean, the one nice thing is movement is really simple. So many ancient rules spend a whole load of time on complicated movement rules. To make sure that you get all your wheeling and various other bits and pieces exactly right.
It's my pet hate about WAB.
Basically, in this, movement rules are really simple. You either advance, which means you can move forward, you can move straight forward, and alter your. You can move diagonally by up to half a base width, in either direction, or you can manoeuvre, which means that you need a higher a higher dice roll than you normally do. Basically, it takes 1 pip more to order a manoeuvre, which basically means you can, as long as you don't exceed your movement distance with the piece of the base that's moving the furthest around, you can move wherever you like.
Oh, that's cute. And notice the other nice side effect of that. You'll be moving later as a result.
Yes.
I like that. That's, you know me, I have a soft spot for mechanisms that have that interlock and have multiple neat effects. That's really nice.
Yes, there are, and actually the way the command and control system works, there's an awful lot of things in there that allow that automatically mean that things are more complicated, but it happens later. For example, if you roll a natural 6 and allocate it to a unit, that six can be used as a bonus either for movement or in combat or what have you. But obviously, it also means that
it'll move last.
It'll move last. And so it's like it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Yes. And as we were playing this last, I mean, as with most rule sets, it takes it takes a couple of turns or whatever to get into it. And as I say, I've made a bit of a cock up at the start with building the armies, and so it took us a while to get all that sorted out. But once we got going, a couple of turns in, and it's like, and basically it does what you expect it to do. And even when you couldn't quite find the rules, you kind of think, well, we think you should be able to do this when this happens, sort of thing. And then you look in the rule. Like this morning, I was just looking up a couple of things that we were struggling with last night, and we kind of went, "Oh yeah, that does exactly what we expected it would do." Things like, can you advance into combat across the front of a unit of skirmishers? And it's like, well, they're a unit of legionaries. They don't care if they've got skirmishers on their flank because skirmishers don't have a zone of control and stuff like this, which is kind of what we expected, but we couldn't find the rule at the time. But it does exactly what you expect. And there's a couple of other things. I mean, a couple of things with with evades and various other bits and pieces and what have you. But bottom line is, really simple set of rules in the fact of it takes away a lot of the hassle, especially out of movement, which I mean, similar to you, I've always found that so many ancient rule sets have complicated ways of moving, and half the time when you're kind of working out, okay, can this unit move to here? By the time you've worked it all out, you've lost the will to live.
Yes. And the answer is invariably, well, it costs you half a turn if you're one of these, and it costs you a quarter of a turn if you're one of these. You can do it free if you're open order cavalry.
Yes. Quite. But it abstracts that to a certain extent by basically saying, as I say, if you use this maneuver, you can essentially move where you like. You have like, for example, if you retreat or a couple of different bits and pieces, it gives you a minus on your movement speed. But basically, it turns around. It says as long as you can trace an uninterrupted line from the front of your base where you start, the two corners of your base where you start to the two corners of your base where you finish, you can move however you like.
Nice.
Which is really nice, simple, uncomplicated, and
not something you're going to have to go flicking through a 100-page rulebook to find in the heat of battle.
Indeed. But the command and control system is brilliant. Combat system is really simple. It's opposed dice rolling. Because of the way the command and control system works, everybody's involved all the time, and it plays really quickly. We did finish the game last night. Having said that, it's the first time we've played, and it's always the case of the first couple of turns is going to take an awful lot longer. But by the end of the evening, we were cracking along, and we were gutted the fact that it was then like 11:10, and we had to pack up because we were really enjoying it.
Excellent.
And to get someone like Dave Luff, who I don't think he'd mind me saying, but he's a bit of a fussy bugger when it comes to rules. To get him to turn around and go, "Oh, I like these," was a major victory. Now, I know we've talked an awful lot about these, and I've said, and probably I've gone into more detail than what I was expecting, but it just goes to show I'm excited about these. These are really nice. These are a really nice set of rules.
Oh, I shall be ordering a set.
Yeah, they are. No, and as I say, for 40 pages. Okay, the one thing that people possibly might not like, and I'll flag this up now, is when it comes down to effective casualties, it works in the same way as something like Command and Colours. Okay, so taking hits does not affect your combat effectiveness. So basically, you're routed.
God of Battles does that as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
There can't be anything wrong with that because it was designed by Jake Thornton.
Indeed.
So live with it.
Yeah. So hits are basically a combination of morale, cohesion, and physical damage. But your combat effectiveness, you don't have any detriment because, like for example, you got 2 hits. So, it's not as if you're rolling everything at -2, for example, or something like that. Everything stays the same, except for the fact that your unit is at risk of routing should you lose the combat and fail a discipline test, for example, or just take a hit. It's fast, it's furious, it's bloody, really nice, subtle set of command. As you've already said, you can immediately say, oh, actually, the command system does an awful lot more than what you give it credit for on first view.
And it is actually a proper dice-based activation system,
yes.
unlike bolt action, which is a bunch of cards in a bag that are cubes.
Indeed. In this instance, it works very similarly. As I say, when I say it's a cross between Saga in the fact of you pick your dice and you roll them. Actually, it's a bit more like Donnybrook. But Donnybrook is I don't know if you've seen the Donnybrook rules, but Donnybrook has a similar sort of thing where you roll dice, and depending on what dice you roll, you can activate units based on their unit quality and stuff like this. Sword and Spear.
So it's kind of a bit chain of commandy as well.
It's a bit chain of commandy as well. Yeah, I mean basically it's looking at a lot of the elements of the latest set of dice activation rules. So things like, say, Saga, Chain of Command, and Donnybrook.
What are we up now? 4th generation or 5th generation rule set, in other words.
Yeah. Now, as I say, some of them, it does well. I mean, the one thing I do like about it, and I suddenly realised, we are reviewing these rules without actually meaning to review them. But things like, for example, because of the way it works, the friction is automatically in it, because if you roll badly on your activation dice, you will not be able to activate every unit every turn.
But it'll be your choice, which you don't.
It'll be your choice, which you don't, but also you only get to activate units once. So once a unit has been activated for its turn, the activation dice stay with it. so you know it's been activated. It just flicks to a 1, so you know that unit's been activated for the turn. But as I say, you could potentially. But of course, the other great thing, which is something I discovered to my cost, is that depending on when you draw the dice out, you can get your dice at the most inopportune times. So, here am I as a Roman army, outnumbered 2-1, and all my dice come out first. And I'm thinking, I don't want to move yet. I want these guys to come onto me, and then I can, react against them.
Exactly.
And yet all my dice come out first. So I end up in a situation where I effectively end up wasting a turn because I don't actually want to do anything. So all I'm doing is kind of putting my troops on to say, okay, if I get charged, I'll react to it. But otherwise, I'm not doing a lot. And and sometimes it is a case of all your dice come out when you don't want it, and then you spend the rest of the turn kind of going, "Oh heck, what am I going to do now?" As I say, full review to come. Definitely getting Mark on the show to chat about it. Exactly how good it is. Dave has turned around and said, "When you do your podcast, I want to come on and talk about it." Now, Dave hasn't been on the podcast for years. If you remember, Dave was on the infamous 3-hour show that we did back in the day.
I remember it well.
Indeed.
I think I must have fallen asleep during it about 3 times. It's no reflection on the show. It's just that early on I used to listen to Meeples last thing at night, and that show was one I never managed to stay awake for all of.
Indeed.
I must have tried about 4 times.
Yes, it was Meeples and Miniatures does the D6G, after which we kind of went, no, I don't think we'll do that again.
Better be careful with this one, then.
Because we're already going on a bit. We hadn't even started what we were meant to be doing this tonight so far. However, I will say no more other than to say these are a fantastic set of rules. We will go back through all this and review them properly on another show.
And I've had a chance to play them as well.
Indeed. Mike's got them as well. Mike Hobbs has got them. And he really likes them. So we could end up at one point possibly having something like a 4 or 5-way conversation on these.
Wow.
That could be interesting.
That might stretch the technology a bit.
Indeed, it might. However, so we're likely to have a roundtable discussion on these rules at some point. But suffice it to say, best set of rules I've played in Chain of Command by a long way. And they've immediately jumped to the top of my list as far as ancient rule sets to play. So, insofar as much as quick shout out. I think it's August the 16th and 17th. Just been announced at Firestorm Games. Stuart McCorkadale, who is guy who heads up Great Escape Games. They're having their next Iron Man painting 24-hour painting sponsored painting thingy that they did last year, for example. Well, they did it last 2 years. It's the third one they're doing. So it's 24 hours of sponsored painting in aid of Save the Children Fund. I believe it's the weekend of, I think it's August the 16th and 17th. I'm going to get Stuart on the show just to kind of say hi and fill in all the details about it. You can either do it at home and get your mates to sponsor you, or you can actually go along to Firestorm Games for 24 hours. Starts at 12 noon on Saturday, finishes 12 noon on the Sunday. And I'm actually very tempted at the moment it's a toss-up between painting a 15mm chain of command platoon or painting a couple of 6mm armies. I'm very tempted to try and take part this year.
Cool.
But
what's it in aid of?
It's in aid of Save the Children Fund.
Right.
Okay. All the details at the moment are on the Great Escape Games website. Sorry, Great Escape Games Facebook page. So it's over there at the moment. As soon as I can get a hold of him, I'll get Stuart on the show, and we'll have a quick chat about it, and we'll let everybody know in the next couple of weeks what's going on. Okay, but
we can link them from this episode's show notes and in the Meeples app.
Indeed, we can. So I'll be doing that, but just let you know that's going on. So have a look at it. Register your interest, get your mates to sponsor you, spend 24 hours painting an army. What they normally do, you can either paint your own army and get sponsored for it, or you can paint part of an army which will then get auctioned for charity. And they raised, I think it was about £1,500 or something like that last year.
Brilliant.
So really worthwhile cause. Look it up on the Great Escape Games Facebook page, and as I say, we'll put a link in the show notes. Right, I think after all this whittering on about rule sets and various other bits and pieces, we actually need to address what we're going to do tonight. So we'll take a quick break, and when we're coming back, we're going to be talking all about In Her Majesty's Name.
I don't like it, Sergeant. Me neither, sir. Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it Hi-Go-You-Go, sir. Hi-Go-You-Go? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh, not like it? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, look, sir, lummy. Oh. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, Hi-Go-You-Go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir. Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of I-Go-You-Go systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Two fat lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is very happy to be sponsored by Coat d'Arms Paints. Now, Coat d'Arms have been supporting miniatures painters with their products for well over 20 years in some way, shape or form. Their current range is 150 sets of acrylic paint, which are available both as individual colours, but also in paint sets depending on period. Things such as the Ancients paint set, the World War II German, World War II American, World War II Russian paint sets, and they also include things like an ACW set and even a Horsetown set. That's one way to purchase your paints. And they also do triads. Now, if you're a fan of the 3-colour system made famous by the likes of people like Kevin Dallimore, you may like to purchase your paints with a dark shade, a medium shade and a highlight. And the triad system from Coat d'Arms allows you to do this. They also have ranges of textured paints called Brushscape, which allow you to paint from textures onto bases as well as colour. And these are ideal especially for smaller scale models. And if you're a fan of the dip method of painting, then Coat d'Arms have their own product available called Super Shader. This is available in light brown, dark brown and black. Coat d'Arms Paints have a whole range of products available to try. Check them out at www.blackhat.co.uk and be sure to tell them that we sent you.
Now, the first part of the show kind of lasted a little bit longer than what I intended. However, you know what we're like when I kind of get a bit enthusiastic about something. In the meantime, another set of rules, which I was reminded this week as we prepped for the show, actually just what a decent little set of rules these are. Mm-hmm. In Her Majesty's name, which were the second set of Wargames rules produced by Osprey. The first one was, I can't remember the name of the rules, they were Spanish Civil War. I can't remember for the life of me what they were called. I'm sure Mike will look it up in a second with his best Google through. However, the second set of rules produced were In Her Majesty's Name, written by Craig Cartmel and Charles Merton. Okay, and these are a set of skirmish wargames rules based in the steampunk era. Okay, now we've talked about a couple of steampunk games before. We talked about Dystopian Legions, was it? I think, yeah, Dystopian Legions. We've also talked about Empire of the Dead, which up until now has been my favourite set of steampunk rules, none the least because I really like the setting of Empire of the Dead. However, I was reminded, as I came back to read these rules again for the review, actually what a decent set of rules these are. So, as I said, they're published by Osprey. They came out, a couple of years ago?
Something like that. Sure, there's a copyright date somewhere on this. You can tell we prepared this, can't you?
You can tell, yes. No, sorry, yes, came out last year.
Yeah, I don't think they were that old. But, yeah, Craig Cartmel and Charles Merton, otherwise known as, what are they called? Forge of War Development Group.
Okay.
They seem to be producing quite a few odd rules here and there for various people.
Since the original rules have come out, they've also published a couple of expansions. There was a kind of I think it's called Heroes and Villains or something like that, which was a set of effectively army lists and other ideas for the game. And last month, maybe the month before, I think it was last month, they came out with something called Sleeping Dragon Rising Sun, which I'll talk about in a bit, but that's basically moving the game to the Far East. But since then, they've also done some stuff on the website, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. So first off, as I say, it's a gang-based steampunk game. But for the rest of this review, I've been talking a lot in this podcast. So what we'll do, because actually Mike's played this game more than I have.
You sure about that? Mike has played this game.
I think in the case of you've played this game down a club as opposed to me just getting some models out and getting some models out and having a few example kind of dabbling bits over a table to just try out some of the rule mechanisms. So I've kind of played it, but I haven't played a full proper game, if you know what I mean. Whereas Mr. Whitaker has. So Mr. Whitaker will be leading this review.
So, in Her Majesty's Name, as Neil says, it's Victorian steampunk. To quote, and the first immediate thing that strikes you is it comes with good fluff. It opens. I'll read you the first paragraph. It is 1895 and the world is in turmoil. In the decades to come, historians will reflect upon the cause of this state of affairs, and many will point to Charles Babbage. His perfection of the difference engine and then his analytic engine gave the new scientific establishments in the great imperial nations the tools they had so long needed in order to make a great leap forward. The ability to make huge and repeatable sets of complex calculations and revolutionise the world. And so it goes on. So it starts with good flavour, which is always, as far as I'm concerned, is really, really important. And it's a gang-based, it's what I think Hobbsy started referring to as a boutique RPG. It's your sort of typical 5, 10, 15, 20 figures aside. Very, very much RPG light, if you like. The other thing it has going for it, from a point of view of getting into the genre, is it makes a lot of use of, I think, for want of a better word, of archetypes. Not by name as such, but you have things like the bunch of Victorian cops plus the great detective and his doctor's sidekick. No prizes for guessing who they are. And then you have things like the Germans with their undead, the Egyptians, the Victorians' Gentlemen's Adventuring Club. It's a very sort of it's easy to get into the genre and get into the feel, which I think is one of the main battles with a game like this. Is if it just turns into a figure versus figure dice rolling contest, you're kind of wasting your time. It's also got some lovely touches. The forward starts with a set of golden rules. Players should shake hands with each other at the beginning of the game. A firm grip while wishing your opponents the best of luck is considered most acceptable. That means I'm not playing it with Sidney Roundwood. And there's a few nice notes like that. But then I guess we move on to the core mechanics. One of its design aims, and it actually says so in the foreword, is that they aim to make it that you don't need to spend a lot of time learning the rules. The idea is the players can learn the rules in a few minutes and get on with the fun of fighting each other. It's D10 based. Everything's a D10 roll. A 1 is always a fail. So there, you set your store out immediately. Everything works on the same kind of roll. 1's always a fail. Success depends on odd little bits of maths. And fundamentally, that's all you really need to learn. There's about 3 basic formulas and a few bits of basic movement rules, and that's it. Everything else is look it up on your faction sheet for your modifiers.
Yeah. Okay. So we start off with a basic introduction into playing the game. So other than the figures and a set of D10s, what size table do we need?
I don't know. We played on a 4x4. I don't suppose you'd need much bigger than that, really. It's a typical skirmish game. You're not going to need much. They actually
recommend a 3x3. Interestingly enough,
nobody has 3x3. It's not ridiculous. Well, they do, yeah. Like I said, the club boards are 4x2, so we just set up a 4x4 and didn't start in the middle, didn't start at the edges, if memory serves.
Yeah, but so 4x4 is more than enough for this.
Yeah,
as I say,
is great.
10, 15 figures aside, tops, really.
Yeah.
All measurements in inches.
Oh, but of course. Dear me. It's ghastly French units. Dear me, no.
Yes, it's in Her Majesty's name, so we have to be using imperial units.
Yes, we do. So your figures basically have 4 stats. They have a shooting value, which is the modifier to ranged combat. They have a fighting value, which is the modifier to close combat. They have a speed, which modifies their base movement. You start out at 6 inches and add your speed, and it also modifies some attack rolls. And then they have a stat called pluck. And pluck basically is what keeps you alive. It's the figure's, quote, inner reserve of courage, confidence, intestinal fortitude, and even arrogance. It's what you use to save yourself from a hit, to charge against an enemy that causes fear, to resist certain mystical powers. Yes, there are mystical powers. We'll come to that later. Figures also get talents, and then figures get equipment. And equipment does things like gives you armor bonuses, gives you weapon bonuses to firing or to melee combat, that kind of thing. It's all ridiculously simple from that point of view.
Yeah, simple, intuitive. Does what it says on the tin, really. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. So your turns are divided into 4 phases. You have initiative, movement, shooting, and fighting. Initiative, everybody rolls a d10 and adds the leadership bonus. Leadership is a talent of your most senior member of your company who's still alive. So, and then you each compare, and the player with the highest score goes first. Ties roll off again, and you just go in order from there. But instead of it being I go, you go round in rotation.
Yeah, it's basically 1 figure, 1 activation. So it's something. Yeah. It's a bit like something like Infinity, for example.
Yeah, which I've not played, but I'll take your word for it.
But it's that level. So you move a model, somebody else moves a model. The interesting thing I found out immediately at the start of these rules, or one thing I found interesting, was the fact that right from the start, it's set up as if you're playing with multiplayers. So it's not. Yes. It's designed to play with multiple people, not just one people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And right from the start. Whereas sometimes with a lot of games, you kind of say, okay, it's designed for 2 players as a 2-player game, and then if you have multiple players, you then have to change things slightly. Right from the start with this, it's set up so you can have you have several players all playing all at the same time.
So you can have that classic classic adventure H Rider Haggard, multiple parties going for the same MacGuffin kind of thing.
Indeed.
Yeah. So that's initiative, and fundamentally, as I said, it's a rotation thing. You keep going through that order until you've all run out of figures to move. The movement phase, everybody gets to move a figure up to their maximum distance, which is usually 6 inches plus speed. If you're on a horse, it'll change. If you're on a vehicle, it'll change. If you've got heavy armour on, you'll lose your speed bonus. If you're in a fight, you can't do anything other than disengage. And then there's terrain modifiers. We don't really go into details of that, but it's a set of wargames rules. There are terrain modifiers, there are movement modifiers. You can also have the option to run, which gives you an extra 3 inches of move, but you can't shoot if you run. And you can move into contact, which allows you to get stuck into melee combat.
Indeed. And of course, there's also rules for things like jumping and flying. Yeah. All of which later.
Yeah. And then you get onto firing. Firing is elegantly simple. So elegantly simple, I've lost the note. There we are. 1d10, add your shooting value, add your weapon bonus, add any other modifiers for things like terrain, invisibility, whether you moved, mystical powers and talents, and then you need to beat or exceed the opponent's armor score. If you do so, you've hit. And this is where you think, ooh, this is going to get bloody, because if you've been hit, it's a pluck roll, and if you fail the pluck roll, you're out. Dead.
Yep.
Or at least do not continue in the game. Now, before you think, oof, that's a bit vicious, it's worth noting that an unarmoured human has an armour value of 7, and weapon bonuses tend to be 2 or 3, and shooting values tend to be low single. So you're not hitting every time, although there is a general... It's like... Going back to Judge Dredd, which we covered a while back, this is a set of rules that places a premium on cover. You stand in the open, it's going to hurt.
Oh yes.
But pluck, typically, to take the British rifles, those lovely chaps, the Thin Red Line, who are one of the sample factions, their captain has a pluck value of 3, so he's not going to die. So if he beats his pluck roll, or if he's on a 4 to a 6, but he's got a 60% chance of surviving. If he makes his pluck roll exactly, he'll be knocked down. If he rolls a 2 or a 1, he'll be dead. So it's not... Sorry, 65% chance of surviving. And an ordinary soldier has a pluck of 5, so again, it's not quite as bad as it sounds, but it is quite bloody, and I think it's meant to be quite bloody. And you do need to make use of cover wherever and whenever you can. The converse, though, is true. Because of the way these rules stack up, it's possible, if you've got a critter with insane amounts of armour, that your one solitary rifleman is going to have serious trouble actually putting any hurt on him at all. But so one of the things they add to that is the rule for volley fire. If you've got, for example, you're taking your Thin Red Line as an example, you can designate a primary shooter, and then you get a +1 bonus for every figure that joins him. So if you want to take down the big carnivorous apes charging you with the Thin Red Line, you designate your captain who's probably got the best firing skill as your primary shooter, have the other 5 soldiers shoot with him and get a +5 bonus.
Indeed, and that's one way that you can get lower quality troops, or even militia or that sort of thing to gang up on the better quality troops. So there are ways around some things. So you don't have the unstoppable object or what have you.
Well, because there is, if you think about it, if you've got something with a fire skill of 2 and a weapon skill of 2, maximum you can get is 14.
Indeed.
If you've got something with 12 armour that's behind cover, you're never going to hurt it.
No.
So it works. It's a very nice way around the problem. So that's volley fire, and there's other variants, like you've got heavy weapons which can split their attacks. You have grenades,
which are quite nasty.
Yeah,
grenades are quite nasty in this.
Roll attack. If attack roll is a hit, you used to roll a separate attack against every figure within the radius. And the grenade does do quite an unpleasant amount of damage.
Yes.
And you do things like flame grenades ignore armour. for example, which is quite nasty.
Yeah, there is a one of the factions is like an anarchist mob. And
the Brick Lane mob, aren't they?
The Brick Lane mob, and they have this thing called basically it's
the Brick Lane bottle grenade.
The Brick Lane bottle grenade, which is otherwise known as a Molotov cocktail, and yeah, that's nasty.
Grenades ignore cover. Grenades ignore the fact the target was moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nasty. So that's firing, melee combat, in a piece of sensible game design. D10 plus fighting value rather than shooting value, plus weapon bonus, plus modifiers against armor. Target figures works exactly the same, with the one note that if the target figure has a speed bonus, then that gets deducted from the attack roll. So if you're quick, you can dodge, which is nice, very simple. There's not really much more to say. And again, you can have multiple attacks. You outnumber. If you outnumber someone, you get a +1 bonus for surrounding enemies. So it's all quite nice, actually.
Yes,
and it really is that fundamentally that's the core mechanics of the system. You can learn that. The rest is table lookup.
Indeed, and
if that sounds like I'm cheapening it, I'm not. It means it does the thing that you want a set of rules like this to do, which is once you've learned it as a mechanism, it just falls away and sits there in the background, and you get on with playing the game.
Yeah. And as far as the actual the rules are concerned, all those rules take up I can't. Oh no! I'm reading on my Kindle, and it's 17% of the rulebook.
And here I am at the end of section 3, and we get to the post-game survival test.
Indeed.
If you're playing a campaign, at the end of the thing, any figures that are laid down dead on the floor, you pick them up, you make a pluck roll. They survive the pluck roll, they're back for the next time.
Indeed.
If they roll their pluck exactly, they miss a game. If they fail to roll, bye-bye.
Now, considering this is like a 64-page rulebook, so essentially all the basic mechanisms for playing the game are in the first 10 pages.
Yeah. But
basically,
going on from there, you then have some notes on terrain, and that's mostly a bunch of tables to note what your movement mods are for the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have section 5, which is the armory. It covers armour, and you start with the ordinary. Just clothing is 8, lined coat is 9, brigandine, steel plate brigandine is 10, brigandine is 9, chain shirt is 10, steel breastplate is 11. And then we're into things that Mr. Babbage appears to have had a hand in.
Indeed.
Like the Faraday coat, which is 8 or 11 against arc weapons. Ooh, how this is starting to get interesting.
Indeed.
The Faraday shield, the Vulcan coat.
The Patent Kelly suit I thought was quite fun.
Yes, that's for the American US Marshals Army, isn't it?
Yes.
Force, where you can have one of them got up in the sort of Ned Kelly full head to toe armour, but it's made from some interesting steel reinforced ceramic. So we're back into the fluff now here, it's very much there's sort of that whole steampunky, lots of magnets and sparks flying everywhere,
right down to the magnetostatic umbrella.
I've just spotted that.
Yes. The must-have accessory for every gentleman adventurer.
Yes. Creates a personal repulsion field.
There we go.
Sweet. And then after the armour table, we have a weapon table, and again, this is where, you will not need this because you'll have yourself an army sheet, which will have your figure with its base FV and that, and your weapon list with the bonuses and the modifiers to the pluck roll and so on and so forth. And so we have a whole bunch of melee weapons going down. Well, this is the British policemen have the English all-electric truncheon, which I'm intrigued by.
Yes, basically, it's an electric truncheon, and so it generates. It's effectively almost like an electro stun weapon.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it at that.
What's not to like? when you get right down to the far end of the weapons table, we have the Congreve rocket.
Yes, Congreve rocket gun, indeed. Which is
And that's before we move on to the weird stuff. We've got arc weapons, poison, etc. And then the section marked weird science. And the whole point of this is it's just, this is where you actually get into the steampunk stuff. And you could use this as a straight, no steampunk at all combat system. And it would work reasonably well. But I think half the fun is that some of these things are that little bit H. Rider Haggard and people like it, Doc Savage, Man of Bronze, and so on and so forth. That feel.
Yeah. And so you kind of get right into the weird stuff. So you end up with things like mechanical horses, which is the thing called steam-powered horses, which were specifically developed for the US cavalry, which made me smile. Again, mechanized walkers, which have been usually used for industry, and they've been adapted for the military and various other bits and pieces.
The vertical spring translocator.
Yeah.
But I think that's a polite way of saying high-tech pogo stick.
Indeed.
We're not. I mean, this may sound like we're mocking it. We're not. This is all delightfully whimsical stuff. It fits the genre. It fits the fluff.
Indeed, it does. After that, you then move on to talents, which is how you differentiate. Basically special rules that differentiate individuals, especially your kind of hero figures, if you like.
And this is a very. We should figure out where these fit. I'd call this a fourth generation rule. It's like the way special units in Flames of War get engineer or things like that, or Napoleon at War does it as well. Where you or in fact Chain of Command does it. You have Shermans have Ronson as a special rule.
Yeah.
Or slow reload, and it's like applying a keyword to your force, which comes with a special rule for it. There is always the little problem with this as a rule mechanic that you've got to make sure you think quite carefully when you design the game about how talent A works against talent B for all possible combinations of A and B, which can get a little hairy when there's lots of them. But essentially, I think it's quite a common design trick these days. And Dreadbolt does it.
Dreadbolt does things like Songs of Blades and Heroes have been doing it for quite some time. It's become a very...
It might even be third generation once we figure out what third generation is.
It's something we've seen for a while, but it's a very nice, clean way of doing things.
And again, you just need the lookup table.
Yeah.
And once you've got, once you're used to your army, you'll know what the specials are. I see this as a game where you very rarely look at the rules once you get started. Once you actually play your force regularly.
Firing and melee mechanics are basically exactly the same. Movement and initiative and everything else is all really simple. So, yeah, as you say, it becomes a game where actually you're thinking about what you're doing with your troops and not worrying about what the rules say.
Yeah.
Which is, an ideal for a game of this type.
Yeah. So that was talents. Then there's mystical powers, which, as far as I can see, are to a degree combination talents, weapons, depending on which phase of the game they work in. You have things like Dragon Breath, which is effectively a ranged weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You have Dragon Wings, which effectively makes you move. Flight, grants you flight, in fact, allows you to grant one of your followers flight, and so on and so forth. And there's a lovely collection. Again, it's nice sort of fluff kind of things. We then move on to a point system, which you knew was coming. Go on, Vinny, you knew it was coming.
Well, it's this classic style of game. I mean, right back to the days of things like playing Necromundum and stuff like this.
Let's face it, this is a descendant of.
Yeah. This style of game, comes out of that.
Comes out of Necromunda and Mordheim and all those games of that original generation.
Yeah, and you're not going to get away from the fact that it's points driven.
And it's got to be.
Yeah,
it's pretty much got to be, because you have to work out something that is at least an approximation to balance, because it's that kind of game. You're unlikely to be, well, you won't be creating realistic historical scenarios and thus wanting the historical forces. You want something that'll give you a good hour-and-a-half game on a club night with forces that will not make it all go horribly one-sided and yuck, basically.
Indeed.
So there, it obligingly provides you with a table for working out points costs. So if you want to cut your own force from whole cloth, you can do so. But once we've done that, you can basically you set yourself points cost. You can draw from a number of the existing companies that North Star very obligingly provide figures for, and they're very nice figures.
They are. If it's anything from the, I mean, we've already mentioned things like Scotland Yard and the British
Rifle Company. Yeah.
The Gentlemen's Club. Which could be anything from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen right through to whatever you wish. Then there's things like Society of Thor, which is
they're fun.
Yes, because of course it doesn't matter what era you're in, you want Nazi zombies, except they're not Nazis, they're Germans.
Absolutely, I'm here to testify that Nazi zombies are good. Basically, the Society of Thor has this interesting feature that any of the Jaeger who fall over get revived as Todtruppen, or dead troops.
Dead troops. Indeed.
Which come suddenly from having a pluck roll of 5 to a pluck roll of 3, can't shoot, but are terrifying, so you've got to make a pluck check to actually attack them. And provided that they are within range of one of these strange arc generators, which is what revivifies them, then they can, and they weren't taken out of the game by fighting or shooting. Sorry, no. If the Jaegers, if you shoot them, they won't rise again. But basically, they can. When you kill a Jaeger, they rise as a Todtruppen, which is kind of fun. It makes for a nice little shtick. I think it's the best word for the Germans. And I think every force has its shtick, but they're as I said, it's very archetype driven. They're all archetypes you can find in the kind of fiction that you draw on to make this kind of game. We have the Black Dragon Tong. We have the Servants of Ra. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Egyptology gone mad. Yes.
Egyptology gone brilliantly mad.
Indeed.
Mummified priests, anyone?
You got the Wild West show. Which, as we all know, is just a front for the American Secret Service.
well, more to the point, it's also a front for someone who can't be bothered to raise another force when they put one together for Dead Man's Hand.
Indeed.
The Légionniste Étranger, otherwise known as, of course, the French Foreign Legion.
French Foreign Legion, indeed.
Who come with Professor Mobius, who provides them with some strange serums to improve their pluck rolls, and a bunch of Bedouin tribesmen. The Brick Lane Commune, who were the anarchist commune we mentioned earlier, the US Marine Corps.
The US Marine Corps, indeed.
There you go. So there's a feel. There are more in the supplements, which we'll cover in a bit. And then, then you get what you'd expect, which set standard scenarios, because everybody needs a set of standard scenarios for this kind of thing. It's always good fun. Interesting ones like Death at Your Heels. Soon the area will be devastated by a rolling artillery barrage or a natural disaster such as lava flows of rising floodwater. Your mission is to get to a steam launch waiting at the riverbank, but it's only got room for one company.
Yes. So you're running away from something that is advancing across the table while fighting each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
All good team.
Yeah.
Fun.
Indeed. I mean, it's a lovely little set of scenarios actually, and one thing.
Catch the pigeon.
Catch the pigeon, indeed. One thing to point out, even at this stage, is that it's for whatever whatever steampunk game you're into. For example, well, I mean, actually, for whatever group, this sort of kind of level of skirmish game you're into, there are things that are different in this rules. He says some of the scenarios are the kind of things that you haven't kind of seen elsewhere, and the kind of thing, and especially for anything like pulp sort of games. That's a really nice idea. Not only the scenarios, but he then goes on to talk about landscapes and where.
Before it talks about that, scenario complications.
Oh yes, scenario complications. Yes.
You can have your battlefield mined by unknown saboteurs, a pea soup fog. You can collateral damage. So there are civilians on the battlefield. So if you were playing in a town scenario, you could have this one. If every time you miss, if you roll 10 or more on re-roll the attack and roll 10 or more, you kill a civilian. And if you kill more than 10 civilians, you've lost the game. There's Twilight. There's unwanted attention from Scotland Yard in the middle of the scenario. Earthquakes. Night, for example. And then Neil says it moves on to landscapes, and they've got some nice suggestions for. Again, it's just plucking things out of the genre and making them fit into the rules and the setting. Really, really like it.
Yeah, there's a lot of work gone into it, and they've obviously picked up, as you say, a lot of archetypes come out from whatever pulp films or that sort of thing that you've been watching or what have you. Whether it be, as I say, the landscapes, you've got everything from the usual dockyards and city streets, graveyards, through to things like fighting on the Orient Express and things like this. And fighting cathedrals or across a crowded theatre and all that sort of thing. So, yes, all these sort of things in there. Just ideas. So, hey, try this. Well, there's a great one about fighting across the rooftops. So all you actually do, rather than modelling the street, is model rooftops. Yeah. So you could have a game where actually all you're doing is one unit, one company is pursuing another, and you're having jumping from roof to roof and various other bits.
Now there was a table that did that. Salute a couple of years ago, but I think that was actually for the other steampunk game, wasn't it? Empire of the Dead.
Empire of the Dead, yeah.
Yeah. But again, you could use that for here. And then, just to wrap things up, you have the campaign, and sensibly, they provide you with a nice set of rules for linking scenarios together, so you can arrange for campaigns. You can do the thing that everybody wants to do down the club, which is play in a Majesty's name every month for a year and have a big battle at the end, when everybody's gone up with levels and just get used to the system. And it's really not. Again, there's not a lot to it, but there doesn't need to be a lot to it. It's enough to do the genre. It does the genre very well. And you wrap up with a nice quick reference sheet at the back, which, if you hadn't figured out from the summary we've already given you, is quite literally it's 4 different game mechanics and about 6 tables of reference to the basic weapon types that you might need. And the other thing I will say for it, compared to all the other Osprey rules I've played, is whoever wrote this actually understands how to write a wargames book where you can find things.
Yes, it is quite easy to find stuff in it.
Much as I enjoyed playing Gods, Heroes, and whatever it's called, Mortals, I got so frustrated trying to find rules. Whereas this, beautiful, simple. It's got an index. It's got numbered sections. It's cross-referenced sensibly. It was clearly written by a wargamer and edited by a wargamer.
Well, to be fair, Of Gods and Mortals is written by Andrea Siligoi, who is a pretty decent wargames rules writer normally. Rules, but I have to say, I really enjoyed Of Gods and Mortals, but it really, really needed editing so you could actually find things while you were playing the game. I kind of agree with that.
But this has been beautifully done. This is a really good job from that point of view.
Yeah.
A lot of people could actually benefit from looking at this and seeing how to put together a set of rules such that you can find things in it.
It's a really nice. I mean, as far as how long is it going to take me to read through it and understand it? Give yourself a couple of hours.
If that.
If that. But as I say,
listen to this podcast. Go put your fingers on the table and play the game.
Yeah, the basic rules, 10 pages or so. Everything works. It's pretty intuitive. Obviously, there's the usual things of you'll be looking up certain tables for a while. Give yourself a couple of games tops, and you'll be playing this with your eyes shut. It's simple, but it's not simplistic. It is one of those classic things of it's a simple games mechanism, but it is not a simple game. which is one of the ideals, I think, of this style of
It's the holy grail for a boutique RPG, like whatever you want to call it, game, is to have, as I said, to have the rules fall away so you can get on, play the game, and get immersed in. I mean, it's like Judge Dredd in the sense that if Judge Dredd did not have the background and the fluff, it would just be a sci-fi shoot, punch game. And because the rules are relatively simple, but without being simplistic, you stop having to pause your immersion. And this kind of game is all about the immersion. You stop losing your immersion because you need to check the rules.
Yeah. Now, as you mentioned, there've been a couple of expansions for this already that have been published by Osprey. There was a book which I must admit I haven't seen, which I believe was called Heroes and Villains.
Heroes, Villains, and Fiends.
That's the one. Which are basically NPCs or extra characters that you can add into, and I think extra scenario ideas and those are the bits and pieces like that.
There's a bunch of new companies, including the Zulu, the Apache, the Secret Service, the Knights Templar.
Oh, right, okay.
And the Hellfire Club.
Well, hey!
Yeah! Additional scenarios and a sample campaign. More equipment, more talents, more mystical powers. In short, it's a supplement.
It's
a supplement in the classic sense of the word. I said my only worry, and I haven't read it, so I can't comment, is if once you start adding more powers, more talents, you run into that N-squared problem of making sure that they all interact properly.
Yeah.
And you don't suddenly discover that you have the irresistible force, the immovable object, and no rule for what happens when the two point at each other. But that's a problem. That's a common problem. I'd like to think they've probably designed their way around it. I said I don't have Heroes, Villains, and Fiends yet. It's on my shopping list.
I reviewed I've recently reviewed for Miniature Wargames 365, actually, sorry, 375, actually, Sleeping Dragon Rising Sun, which is the second official supplement for In Her Majesty's Name. As the name would suggest, this is dealing with stuff as you head east. So it covers essentially India, China, and Japan. Okay, so you've got new field companies, including things like the Chinese Imperial Army, martial art monks, terracotta warriors,
yes,
the Indian Army, Tipu Sultan. Got to have him in there somewhere.
Oh, God, absolutely got to.
Yeah, then you've got things like Thousand Ronin, Ninja, Yakuzas.
We've already got the Black Dragon Tong in the main rulebook, of course.
Indeed, of course.
Yeah.
And then some of the European companies, the Kaiserliche Marine Suppression Squad, which is basically like Victorian Kriegsmarine. You've got the Royal Navy and the Honourable East India Company.
I was hoping they were going to put it in.
Yeah, they're in there. So actually, effectively, what you've got is that is 25 new companies, along with all their new troops, new weapons, new talents, what have you. Again, more new landscapes. So you've got things like cities, jungle temples, even something taking place on a ship. Some more scenarios, some more complications. A lovely one where you've got things like, one of the complications is you're fighting in an ancient temple and you happen to disturb a lesser demon that's protecting the temple.
It's also worth noting, he says, having called it up on the website, that in the back of the book there is a set of tables under section 9, backward compatibility.
Indeed.
Which lists the abilities that they've added in the new books that the forces from the older books can use. So, for example, it says there's things like armoured steam lorries in here that and skirmisher talents that weren't in the original rulebook, which are now available to the British Rifle Company. Scotland Yard can have an armoured steam lorry. The Black Dragon Tong can have one of the talents, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And they've also done it for Heroes, Villains, and Fiends. And they've also done it for, which you were about to mention, so I'll give you a nice seamless link into it, the forces that are actually listed on the In Her Majesty's Name blog.
Indeed. Right, okay, so the one thing that they very recently announced was the fact that as far as in Her Majesty's Name was concerned, and their relationship with Osprey, they kind of taken it as far as they feel they can. Because basically, from this point, it would only be just publishing more and more supplements. And basically, yeah, they thought, well, okay, we're up to a couple of supplements. If we're doing any more stuff, we probably want to be publishing them on a smaller scale. So, Sleeping Dragon Rising Sun, as far as In Her Majesty's Name is concerned, is probably going to be the last printed supplement by Osprey. However, what they're going to do now is they're either going to be publishing mini supplements, either as magazine articles. I think they've got a deal with Warhammer with Wargame Soldiers and Strategy, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I can't remember which. But one of the magazines they've certainly printed scenarios in the past, but also by the blog. Okay, so the first major thing on this they've done in their blog is that they've started looking at In Her Majesty's Name Gothic, which is kind of where it starts straying into Empire of the Dead territory. You know, because obviously one of the big differentials between this and Empire of the Dead has that huge Gothic horror element, which is something I really love about that background. Okay, the backgrounds are quite different. There is no reason why you can't play In Her Majesty's Name with figures of Empire, with some of the units of Empire of the Dead, the gangs and stuff. You just create your own gang, and vice versa, I suppose. It's probably a little bit more difficult to fit In Her Majesty's Name stuff into Empire of the Dead than it is the other way around. Having said that, as I say, so what they're doing now is they're going to be in future doing the rest of their mini supplements on the In Her Majesty's Name blog, which is inhermajestisname.wordpress.com.
Indeed. And if you go to there, you will find on the menu bar there is a link to bonus material. And that contains the latest version of the reference sheet, some guides to creating your own company, the Prince of Wales Extraordinary Company, set of errata, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, absolutely, about time too,
well, hey.
the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, the Salamander Fire Insurance Company, which, apart from anything else, includes two characters called Bonnie McGrew and Dibble. There will be a pause while Neil and I actually recover enough sobriety to continue this podcast.
Superb.
The Kentish men, the Bloody Thistle, La Cirque du Ténébré, which is like La Cirque du Soleil, only much scarier, I suspect. And I suspect this one's got the serial numbers filed off like no business. Hergé's Adventurers, which includes Captain Mackerel, Sooty, Pierre Cocteau, and Jean Cocteau. It should be noted that the other thing I am starting to really love about this rule set is they have the most delightful sense of humour.
Indeed, yes. I mean, as we hinted right at the beginning with the introduction to the rules about firm handshakes and this, that, and the other. Yeah, it's written with a certain amount of affection and tongue-in-cheekedness. It is not a 100% serious set of rules, but having said that, it's a serious set of rules with a comedy element in it. It has some very, very nice touches.
And just to finish things off, there is also a handy roster sheet, spreadsheet, for those of you who need to calculate your own forces, which rejoices in the lovely name of Lady Kate's Marvellous Maniacal Enumerator. Have fun.
Indeed. So, everything you ever wanted to play In Her Majesty's Name. I was very pleasantly surprised by this game.
I really enjoyed it. I had a game. I've only had a couple of games. I believe Graham's actually running one down the club on Monday, so in some ways it's kind of a shame we couldn't have done this next week. But I had a game with Graham at the club where we played the Explorers Club against a bunch of Scotland Yard finest and a certain famous consulting detective, which you can find on my blog. And I had great fun. The other nice thing about it is worth noting, we haven't actually said, the figure range that North Star do is 28mm.
Yeah.
The rules are, in as much as a set of rules are designed for a scale, it's gang-based skirmish. You're going to want to play it with 28mm. One of the nicer side effects of that is if you're into the Lado range of miniature vehicles, they pretty much fit 28mm figures. They do nice things. They do quite a lot of horse-drawn stuff and the like that fits in quite well. Graham had a few that worked really well with it. I don't think he was actually used. It's not the only range of figures available either. I suspect you can draw on quite a lot of the Empire of the Dead figures, and I suspect that a lot of the more, what's the word I want here? The more whimsical 28mm figure manufacturers. Neil's the expert on the kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you've got things like, because steampunk is becoming more and more popular. You've got the Wolfsung range from Micro Studio Arts. You've got crikey, what's it called? There's a new guy. Actually, rather interestingly, where I was at Salute, I interviewed a guy at Salute for Australian company who are looking to produce a new game called Twisted, which again is steampunk based, and they have some really nice, interesting ideas around steampunk stuff. Oh, of course, there's Dystopian Legions. Although Dystopian Legions figures are slightly bigger, so they may not. You can certainly play this game.
Yeah, but equally, you can go and grab, if you want to get a British Rifle Company, you can probably grab some. In fact, if you want to do something Darkest Africa setting, you can go and get a box of the Warlord Rock's Drift figures. Foundry do a Darkest Africa range, which looks like it will be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and a lot of these. So in the in the Africa ranges, you end up with ranges that include things like mummies and from Egyptology, and there's Egyptology. Also, of course, even up to as far as some of the stuff that Copplestone do. I know it's
casting room.
No, Copplestone castings. I know a lot of their stuff is aimed at kind of 1920s, as opposed to turn of the century. But you can certainly get away with some of it.
Tim Prowl, casting room miniatures, by Foundry also do a wonderful range of Victorian townsfolk, upstairs, downstairs, gentlemen and miscreants. You can't go wrong.
No. So, and there's all sorts of stuff now coming out. I mean, whether it's I'm not sure as far as vehicles are concerned for the Majesty's name range. Certainly, Westwind have a fantastic range of vehicles for Empire of the Dead, which would easily cross over into this. Oh, yeah. You're even into things like, for example, war bases. That wonderful Scottish company.
That Hanson cab is perfect.
Indeed, they have just started producing, or recently started producing, a set of MDF vehicles, including things like a hearse, a covered wagon, and a Hanson cab. And what they've recently started doing, they've just got a deal with a company to produce horses. For their vehicles, because up until now, up until very recently, they didn't have. They have the vehicles, but they didn't have the tack and the horses to go with them. Now they do, and they include a Hanson cab. So you get a full Hanson cab, which includes horse, driver, passenger, and the actual. The actual cab itself is in MDF. Everything else is in either metal or resin, and it's pennies. I think it's about £8 or £10. I think it is.
And we've missed one. Ironclad.
Huge
Victorian sci-fi range.
Okay, I must admit I wasn't aware of them. Right, okay.
No, they have a Victorian sci-fi range, including steam tanks.
Actually, when you're talking about Victorian sci-fi, another one immediately sprung to mind is Meridian miniatures or Meriden miniatures. They did a Kickstarter last year for some Brits and Germans for VSF. So there's those as well.
But having said all that, of course, if you are wanting to play one of the companies out of the book rather than cut yourself something out of whole cloth, the actual In Her Majesty's Name branded figures from North Star are lovely. They're really, really nice.
They are nice, sculpted by Steve Seller, and they are a very nice set of a very nice.
They do a wonderful model of the Johnson Mark VII Industrial Walker, which is basically just looks like a massive, great battle mech with a huge, great pickaxe in one hand, being driven by a very Victorian-looking working bloke in dungarees with dungarees over a shirt. It's superb.
Yes. So the official range of figures is very nice. It's interesting to see, when you start comparing the different ranges. That they go off in slightly different directions depending on the particular background. So the In Her Majesty's Name figures tend to be or have a little bit more kind of high tech weaponry. Whereas Empire of the Dead stuff, okay, there's some high-tech stuff in there, but it's gone off in a slightly different direction. That's slightly more gothic horror, with standard weaponry, but a few different bits and pieces. So, several of the ranges have gone off in slightly different directions, but there's nothing to say that it's not compatible. And with, say, In Her Majesty's Name is flexible enough that you can use pretty much anything in it.
And that's the beauty of it. It's the range. The system is designed to cover everything from the fairly mental high tech steampunk weapon down to your thin red line British rifleman with Martini Henry or whatever, and it will cope. The world is pretty much if you've got a good imagination here, the world's your oyster.
It is. And with the supplements as well. There is no need to invent your own scenarios. There are enough things to go at with enough different ideas and enough extra complications and stuff you can throw in to keep you going for ages. Even before you have to start thinking of your own stuff, there's loads and loads and loads of ideas. And whatever system you're into, this is a great set of building blocks, a great set of ideas for working on scenarios for this style of game. So whether you're playing In Her Majesty's Name, whether you're playing Empire of the Dead, Wolfsung, or anything like that, it's a great resource. So even if you don't buy the game for the rules themselves are perfectly decent, give a really good game. But if you just want some more ideas for scenarios and stuff, one of the places to go, that it's been really well put together, really well thought out. Gives you a shed load of ideas if you're struggling. Great place, a really good, and of course, especially with the fact that it's from Osprey, it's available both as a 64-page softback rulebook. It's also available as we've hinted already this evening. It's available e-published. You can get it either from Osprey, you can buy it from Amazon. So it's available on Kindle and what have you. I think on Kindle it was. I certainly picked it up for something silly like about £6 pounds or something.
Same here. I said I've been doing this podcast with the Kindle copy open on the screen next to me, with about a dozen bookmarks in the important places in the rules, and I've probably got too many bookmarks for the amount of things that you actually really need. It's dead easy to use.
Yeah. So
it's nice. It's a nice piece of publishing for Kindle as well. It page flows properly. My one gripe is that there are a few places where you have to turn the Kindle landscape to read the full width of the table.
Yes. The tables do not work in portrait format. You have to switch it into landscape just to get the full width tables.
But that's not a massive problem, to be honest.
Minor. It's minor.
Minor.
Yeah. So
I think to summarise, we really like it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the better sets of rules to come out of the Osprey range so far.
Yeah. Not only from the point of view of playability and fun, but from the point of view, it's one of the best edited set of rules in terms of being able to find things, and that's pretty key for a set of rules like this.
Indeed. Indeed.
Particularly, the one thing you are going to want to reference the table, the rule for more than anything is the table for the magical powers and the talents, and they're easy to find. And to be honest, once you've got those, apart from those, once you've played it 2 or 3 times, you're probably not going to need to reference the rulebook again. Probably only ever need the quick reference sheet.
That's it. And then obviously you just need it for your campaign stuff, and that's about it, really. So there you have it. That's In Her Majesty's Name. It'd be interesting to see where they take it from here. I must admit, I haven't looked at the Gothic stuff yet. I mean, I saw the intro, but I haven't looked at it recently to see exactly what they brought out since. But I like them an awful lot more than I thought I would. If that isn't damning with faint praise, I don't know what is. But no, yeah. Sometimes, especially when you kind of think, oh, okay, well, they it's a D10 system as opposed to D6, and okay, well, they're doing this and they're doing that, and I'm thinking, oh, right, okay. Actually, it's done really, really well.
It's done a lot of the same thing that Jake did with Dreadful, in that there is essentially one mechanic.
Yes.
And it's once you've learned the mechanic.
Yeah. And as far as, game mechanics is concerned, keeping everybody involved, it's, move one figure at a time. Yes, that can be a little bit frustrating because it can be difficult at times to fully integrate manoeuvres or what have you. Having said that, you're normally only using 10 to 15 figures a side, tops. So it's not that big a deal, but it basically means that even when you've got a game with 3 or 4 players involved, downtime is minimal. Everybody's involved pretty much all the time, and it's as I say, it's got that element of whimsy, which means that
it's got good fluff.
Indeed, and it's an enjoyable game from that side of things.
And if you are like me, the kind of person who likes writing up your this kind of scenario with the feel of the you're doing a write up in the style of that it should be done in. I'm here to tell you that Conan Doyle is very easy to pastiche.
Indeed. So there you have it. Impressive little set of rules. Certainly worth giving it a look. If you
for that money, you can't go wrong.
Indeed, as you say, you don't have to play it for Steampunk. If you just want to play straight up this sort of era with a small units, small companies, and just play it straight, it copes just as well. You don't need all the fluff, as might intimated. You could quite easily do British Riflemen versus Zulus.
You could. You'd be missing out on the fun, but yes. You could. The rules will do it, and the rules will not break too badly doing it. But I think it's like a lot of the games that have come out recently. What it is like, in a sense, is a lot of the games that come out on Kickstarter, where they're clearly designed that you're selling A, the rules, and B, a lot of figures. Although it's not, in its defence, it's not as cynical about that as some I could think of.
No,
but it does. It wouldn't be the same game without the fluff.
Oh, certainly,
because the fluff is fun. The fluff is really good fun, and it's if you've ever watched any of all those old movies, the King Solomon's Mines, Doc Savage, Man of Bronze, even Zulu, any of the not Charlie Chan. Well, yeah, I suppose to a degree the Charlie Chan. You name it. It draws, and because they're all what's the word? I don't know. They're all things that we as war gamers and people of I think possibly to a degree the average age of the wargamer, but you've grown up with knowing these archetypes. I look through the army list and you can sort of say, oh yes, that's the thin red line, the British Rifle Company, and so on and so forth. They're all nice, clear archetypes. It's very easy to get your hooks into playing them.
Indeed,
it's good.
It's good.
Like it.
Yes, it's good. So there you have it. In Her Majesty's Name. I don't think there's anything more to say on that front. I think we've covered it fairly comprehensively.
I think so.
Indeed, and probably spent more time than we thought doing so. But hey, what else is new? I think that's all we've got time for. So, not much to say. I hope you've enjoyed this evening. I hope you got a few pointers to a couple of games that you might want to try in the near future. And the great thing is, with both of the, whether it's in Her Majesty's Name or something like Sword and Spear, especially if you buy the electronic versions, it ain't going to break the bank at all, which is really nice thing to say. At a time when some of the average rule books are running to £30-35. It's nice to turn around and say, hey, go out. And I realise some people don't like PDFs, but if you don't mind them, especially if you're used to using things on a Kindle or an iPad or this, that, and the other, £6. Brilliant.
Can't go wrong.
No, you can't go wrong at all.
£6, take it to work and throw it at the printer, if you can.
Except of course, we couldn't possibly recommend that you do something like that.
No, I'm too used to Two Fat Laddies rules where it's your only choice. One thing I was going to say, having just flicked to the In Her Majesty's Name blog, a couple of other interesting sources of source material. On TV, Ripper Street and Penny Dreadful.
I'm not. I've heard about Penny Dreadful. I've not seen any.
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it, but Ripper Street certainly.
Ripper Street certainly, yeah. And actually, if you want
Van Helsing as well.
Yes.
But that's got Kate Beckinsale on it, so you watch it anyway.
Too right. Yeah, of course. That's right. Obviously, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Although some people would say that the film is nowhere near as good as anything else as the comic book. Is it heresy to say I quite enjoyed the film? Perhaps it is, but
I enjoyed the film. The film was good fun.
Yeah, but anything like that. I say, even if you want to go Ripper Street, I think you'll find somewhere on Empire of the Dead website. There's actually 3 figures that look not completely unlike the main characters from Ripper Street.
But then again, if you go to In Her Majesty's Name Gothic, you will find a Miss Beaufort Summers, otherwise known as Buffy.
Ah, strange that.
Yes, I wonder where she came from. IHMN Gothic, the Grand Tour of Miss Beaufort Summers.
Ah, right, okay. They've obviously been working on it a lot since I last saw it.
Miss Beaufort, Miss Aurora, that's Dawn to you, Miss Wilhelmina, Sir Giles, Mr. Harris. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that has tickled me about it all the way through, reading through and playing this, is that there is just this delightful, just this little sense of whimsy that goes with it. And if you're sitting on this, listening to this, going, "Oh no, war games have to be serious," I'm really sorry.
So at this point, we'll just say thank you very much for listening. Once again, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. And we'll speak to you very soon. But in the meantime, happy gaming. Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you want to know more about Meeples and Miniatures, there are several things you can do. First of all, you can visit the website at www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. If you want to contact the show at all, you can email me at neil@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. You can follow the show on Twitter. Simply look for M&M Podcast or click the follow us on Twitter button from the website. We also have a group on Facebook. That's the Meeples and Miniatures Podcast Fan Club. Again, follow the link from the website. And finally, if you want to help to support the show, you can always donate to the podcast by clicking the PayPal button on the donate page, again found on the website. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.